What is it you're trying to do with your life?
According to Oxford Languages, to transcend is to be or go beyond the range or limits of something abstract. And in 1957, English biologist and philosopher Julian Huxley wrote an essay arguing for just that. However, it differed from previous philosophies, such as Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson's Transcendentalism, which emerged in 19th century America in response to the rapid industrialization of the market revolution, and all the woes that came with it. Long work hours, environmental pollution, harsh conditions, mass-produced commodities, and limited individual freedom. Transcendentalism argued for self-reliance, simple living in nature, anti-materialism, and skepticism against the church and authority. A century later, though, it was apparent that the same grievances of capitalism that sparked Transcendentalism weren't going anywhere anytime soon. Indeed, while Transcendentalism wished for humans to transcend their rationality and material possessions to commune with God and nature, Julian Huxley's essay, titled Transhumanism, envisioned a different type of transcendence, a transcendence of the natural human form itself to improve the species artificially. By the 1900s, technology was developing at breakneck speeds. The first computer had been invented in Berlin only a decade prior to the publication of Huxley's essay. The first instance of human material cryopreservation occurred in 1954. Space travel became possible as the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1 in 1957. The Micro N, the first commercial personal computer, was unveiled in 1972. Pandora's box had long been opened, and there was no closing it now. With such rapid advancement, it was inevitable that some would see the complex dangers that could arise in a distant future along the same trajectory. In 1982, Bruce Bethke coined the term cyberpunk, combining the word cybernetics with the punk movement of the 70s and 80s that emphasized anti-establishment, counterculture, and individual liberation. 2 years later, William Gibson's novel Neuromancer, starring a hacker and a dystopian sci-fi city facing a powerful AI, launched cyberpunk into popularity and legitimacy through its many awards. Despite being written in the infancy of digital technology, Neuromancer proved ahead of its time and incredibly influential, inspiring later works and popularizing familiar terms such as the Matrix, cyberspace, and ICE, or intrusion countermeasures electronics. You've probably heard the phrase, all art is political. I interpret this as meaning that all forms of art, media, paintings, and cinema, reflect the society and context in which it was made. It can reflect the contemplations, values, themes, grievances, and issues plaguing the time period, offering a freeze frame in time to provide a human insight into the world that other mediums can't. With that being said, contemporary fictional media is often a good way to provide insight into the world as it is today, so you'll find me using such examples often in this video and others. Anyway, the connection between transhumanism as a philosophy and the cyberpunk genre is obvious. Cyberpunk settings, merited by their technological advancement, often include characters with cybernetic enhancements or sentient robots or AIs, perfectly fitting the transhumanist goals of enhancing humanity's capabilities through man-made technology. Transhumanism in cyberpunk can be exemplified by none other than the game and now entertainment franchise Cyberpunk 2077. I, like many others, recently finished the Cyberpunk Edgerunner spin-off show and consequently finished playing the game as well. But I'll be mainly analyzing the show and overall setting of the universe in this video, since I think the storytelling medium is more concise and straightforward way of conveying certain themes than the RPG is. I'll also be referring to CD Projekt Red's entire cyberpunk universe, including the Edgerunner show, as Cyberpunk 2077 to not conflate the cyberpunk fictional genre with the Cyberpunk 2077 fictional universe. According to the Encyclopedia of Applied Ethics by P.D. Hopkins, transhumanism as a philosophy can be split into 3 levels. The first level is beliefs fundamentally necessary to be considered a transhumanist, with the other 2 in descending order of importance. For example, one of the first level beliefs is that experience is defined as the subjective interaction with the universe, and humans are physically limited in their ability to experience. Therefore, it should be our goal to use technological alterations to experience more of what the universe has to offer. As Hopkins put it, they see the natural world, quote, not as a final end, but as a work in progress open to improvement by rational intelligences, unquote. In other words, nature is not set in stone, but should be malleable to improve the quality of life of sentient beings that reside in it. This emphasis on the unlocking of experience can be reflected in Cyberpunk 2077 through the endless barrage of ads in Night City that attempt to sell experience. Exotic, flashy neon lights bombard and sell people their most primal and extreme desires: sex, entertainment, artificially flavored food, stimulants through drugs. But the most clear example by far is the brain dance, or fancy VR that allows one to see and feel all the sensations and emotions that someone else experienced in a pre-recorded video, completely immersing them in their experience. Extreme brain dances can even allow one to experience death. In Night City, nothing is off limits. And according to transhumanism, these should all be fair game as well. After all, if we ought to allow people to experience as much as possible, why not allow them to go inside the brain of another person and feel everything they felt? David and Lucy are able to artificially feel what it's like to be on the moon through their brain dance together at the beginning of the series. Without this technology, most people would never dream of being able to experience this. But, of course, this indulgence in the expansion of experience isn't always a good thing. The transhumanist philosophy of allowing humans to experience as much as possible paves way for escapism, especially when coupled with the harrowing corporate-run reality that the Cyberpunk 2077 characters are presented with. Though the edgerunners we follow don't fall down this pipeline, it's easy to imagine an alternate universe where they do. Lucy and David could very well have lived together on the moon forever and been given their happy ending, so long as they stayed connected to their brain dance and ignored the world around them. In fact, Lucy's main motivation for her dream of going to the moon was to escape the world she was brought into and forced to endure, to get away from Night City's blinding lights and Arasaka's ravaging of her life. When experience is monetized, the same perpetrators that advertise those artificial experiences are responsible for the brutal conditions that consumers try to escape from, selling them their own poison and antidote. It goes without saying that escapism would only allow the status quo to continue unquestioned, distracting the masses through vapid simulations of a better world. That brings us to the second level of transhumanist values. Given that transhumanism emphasizes allowing humans to experience beyond their biological limitations, it follows that transhumanists often adopt an individualistic attitude toward their bodies, free of governmental regulation that would restrict them from developing themselves to their highest potential. Or, as Hopkins puts it, they're, quote, pragmatic, libertarian, and individualistic, unquote. Of course, this can be seen through the Cyberpunk 2077 universe's complete lack of effective regulation of cybernetics. The NUSA is effectively puppeteered by the Militech Corporation, and Night City is effectively puppeteered by Arasaka. Individuals go to private Ripper docks to install pretty much any implant they want, including military-grade black market ones, such as David's Militech Apogee Sandevistan. Mercenaries like Maine and David often install so much chrome that they're barely human anymore, with even Arasaka Academy school children going to school with various implants and softwares of their choosing. But all this laissez-faire freedom has a cost, along with the obvious issue of corporations being able to do whatever they want for the pursuit of profit, including hiring private armies. The transhumanist attitude of anyone being able to enhance their body ad infinitum is ripe for producing cyberpsychos, or individuals who have gone mad and lost their sense of identity, lashing out violently due to an overload of cyberware. It is speculated that cyberpsychosis is partially caused by a disconnect from other humans, who they view as inferior as they become less man and more machine. They become so dangerous due to their cybernetic enhancements that they are often dealt with by MaxTac, a militaristic branch of the NCPD that, more often than not, kills the threat by any means necessary. Thus, in Cyberpunk 2077, cyberpsychos are a byproduct of a transhumanist system. Though it's unclear whether cyberpsychosis could be a legitimate concern for the future, it's very possible that the unequal distribution of and unrestrained use of technology could result in an alienation of certain individuals from normal humans, leading to contempt or violence. The infamous Atom Smasher is known for being so cybernetically enhanced that there's hardly any ounce of organic matter left in him, and is characterized by a complete disregard for conventional morality in human life. According to Hopkins, quote, when a human being has undergone so much technological modification that he is no longer identifiable as a member of the human species, and possesses abilities and embodiment different enough from those of humans to merit his own classification, he has become post-human. The idea of uploading one's consciousness into a digital space to achieve immortality and invulnerability is popular among transhumanists, as an example of the ultimate post-human. In a worst-case scenario, the adoption of transhumanism could mean a genocide of organic humans to make room for post-humans, cleansing the old to make room for the new. After all, isn't that the point of the trans in transhumanism? To transcend or transition from organic humans to superior post-humans? I think by now you already know where I'm getting at. We shouldn't strive for a transhumanist future, or at least, not from where we're at right now. Cyberpunk 2077's capitalist hellscape acts as a warning for a very possible future that we may face with the speed that technology is progressing. Transhumanists often puzzle over what society would look like in the distant future, assuming that technological progress would result in a post-scarcity world. Quote, "Given the development of nanotechnology and the ability to cheaply mass-produce and transform virtually any substance, there would no longer be any need for agriculture, manufacturing as we know it, or buying, selling, and trading materials. All materials needed for human or transhuman existence could be produced immediately and locally." Unquote. But Cyberpunk 2077 illustrates the falsity of such an assumption. With such comprehensive technological advancements, even to the point of possibly harnessing immortality technology through V's Arasaka relic, most working-class citizens remain downtrodden by the same wealth inequality that exists today. In fact, one could argue we're already well on our way to a post-scarcity society. According to the US Census's American Community Survey and Department of Housing and Urban Development, there are 28 vacant homes for every homeless person in the US. Yet we allow them to deteriorate and gather dust rather than house people in need. According to Earth.org, the Green Revolution has allowed us to feed the entire world 1.5 times over, yet 820 million people are classified as undernourished as of 2017. Just as Trauma Team arrived on the scene of David's car crash just to let David's mother die because she wasn't their client, artificial scarcity exists today, and will continue to exist in a transhumanist world. Technology is only as useful as the society around it permits it to be, and Cyberpunk 2077's grim post-scarcity world illustrates that. However, Cyberpunk 2077's themes, and a recurring theme of the cyberpunk genre in general, are often pessimistic and defeatist. Night City and the world at large is the true antagonist, yet, more often than not, Night City wins. Despite all the Edgerunners' best efforts, they changed nothing about the world, and their existence is all but forgotten within the span of a couple months between the ending of Cyberpunk Edgerunners and the beginning of the game. Almost everyone in the crew dies. Lucy gets to go to the moon, but it turns out to be a shallow tourist attraction, and the status quo remains intact and indestructible. David becomes just another tale for the next dreamer. While this can make for compelling storytelling, it doesn't make for a very compelling message. In reality, we do have agency in creating change, especially while we haven't progressed to the point that the Cyberpunk 2077 universe has. The systems in place are not as rigid and permanent as Cyberpunk 2077 makes it out to be, and to believe so is to resign to fate. Though transhumanism may not fix all our problems or even introduce terrifying new ones, even normal humans have the power to influence the world around them. It's not just technology that drives history, but people. Their strength in numbers and wide-scale political and social movements can prevent the cautionary tale of Night City from ever occurring.
Such a magical world.